What's up, fantasy managers? Welcome back to another episode of the First Pitch Podcast brought to you by PitcherList.com. My name is Jake Crumpler, and I'll be your host for this edition of the podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler, and you can find all of my work at CrumplerBaseball.com. Let's dive into everything baseball related from Tuesday, June 17th. We'll start it off, as always, with the transactions, injuries, news, and notes from around the league, kicking things off with the bad news as starting pitcher Bowden Francis, or Bowden Francis, is probably Bowden. He was placed on the 15-day IL with a shoulder impingement. So for all those wondering how long he would hold on to his spot in the Toronto rotation with the way that he's been performing this year, you'll no longer have to wonder because now he's headed to the IL. He will not be in the Blue Jays rotation, at least for the next couple of weeks. In a corresponding move, relief pitcher Justin Bruihl, see, we got all the difficult to pronounce names here. B-R-U-I-H-L, Bruihl, selected from the minors in a corresponding move. The Blue Jays also added relief pitcher Paxton Schultz, who was recalled from the minors, as well as they designated Eric Swanson for assignment in a somewhat surprising move, but it's been a while since Swanson was an effective relief pitcher. Next, we have starting pitcher Tyler McGill, who was placed on the 15-day IL with an elbow sprain. Very concerning. However, he said there is no structural damage. It's just inflammation. McGill will be shut down from throwing for at least 7 to 10 days, so he's likely out longer than the minimum 15 days on the IL, but McGill should be back in probably a few weeks. I would expect somewhere around 21 to 28 days, 3 to 4 weeks, to put it in layman's terms. In a corresponding move, relief pitcher Justin Garza was recalled from the minors. In terms of transactions, catcher Joey Bart was activated from the 7-day IL and will return to being the Pirates' everyday catcher after dealing with a concussion. And in terms of news, starting pitcher Emmett Sheehan, who underwent Tommy John surgery a while ago, is expected to be activated from the 60-day IL to start today versus the Padres to make his season debut. Starting pitcher Trevor Rogers is also expected to be recalled from the minors to start today. He'll face the Rays in Florida at George Steinbrenner Field. Starting pitcher Adam Mazur is also expected to be recalled from the minors to start today versus the Phillies. He's the Marlins' number 12 prospect. And lastly, Justin Verlander is expected to be activated from the 15-day IL to start today versus the Guardians. Now we'll take a look at our notable performances from Tuesday, a day in which we had a full slate of 15 games. We'll start it off with our hitters, leading off with Cam Smith, who helped the Astros to win in Sacramento, going 4 for 5 with 3 runs, a double, 2 homers, and 3 runs batted in. It was his fifth. He's up to 5 homers on the year now. The first one traveled 415 feet at 102 miles per hour, and the second one traveled 431 feet at 100 miles per hour. And Smith has failed to live up to the lofty expectations he earned over the past year. After going 14th overall in last year's draft, Smith quickly climbed up to the top of the Cubs prospect rankings just in time for him to be the headliner in the blockbuster deal that brought Kyle Tucker to the north side. That was before Smith set spring training on fire for the Astros, earning him an opening day roster spot and the adoration of fantasy managers everywhere as they look to add him to their fantasy squads. But he made waves by going deep twice on Tuesday, despite struggling in the early going, which hints at an increased power ceiling that Smith has struggled to display early going of the season. Smith hits the ball hard, but he does have a hard time getting those balls in the air. So hopefully this is the start of a noticeable change in that regard. Otherwise, Smith will be waiver wire fodder in standard leagues. Next, we have Michael Tolia, who helped the Rockies to win in Washington, going 3 for 5 with 2 runs, 2 homers, and 3 runs batted in. He's up to 8 homers now. First one traveled 415 feet at 105 miles per hour, and the second one went 364 feet at 106 miles per hour. Tolia was somewhat highly touted in the preseason because of the power display he put on last year, belting 25 homers in just 116 games for the Rockies, but his swing and miss concerns have become exacerbated in 2025, which ultimately led to Tolia's demotion in late May as he failed to eclipse the Mendoza line thanks to a 39% strikeout rate and accompanied that with just 6 home runs. Tolia didn't fix his whiff issues during his 2-week stint at AAA, but it appears to be the reset that Tolia needed to get back on track. He should be a pretty solid power play in deeper leagues. And lastly, we have Nathaniel Lowe, who did all he could on the opposite side of that one, but the Nationals lost to the Rockies. Lowe went 2 for 5 with 2 runs, a double, and a home run, and an RBI. Was his 10th homer of the year, and it traveled 356 feet at 101 miles per hour. And I'm a little concerned about Lowe this year. He's not looking great in his first year with the Nationals, batting just .230 with a .681 OPS. And it looks as if he's tried to fix his launch angle to tap into his power more often, but he's gone too far in the other direction after being a guy who hit way too many ground balls. Lowe is now hitting a ton of pop-ups and a ton of lazy fly balls, which accompanying a slight increase in long balls is really not that great, because we've seen a couple more home runs this year. He's probably on pace for a little bit over 20, which he's eclipsed before, but in the years past, he was more of a 15 sub 20 homer guy. But this slight increase, accompanied by a ton more pop-ups and lazy fly balls, reducing his batting average, doesn't seem to be the trade-off we're wanting. However, if Lowe really wants to become an all-or-nothing power hitter, he'll need to pull the ball more. He's currently going oppo more than to the pull side, which is not great for power. And on top of that, he's lost his typically patient approach and now has lost his most common avenue of reaching base, the free pass. This version of Lowe is only rosterable in 15-teamers and deeper. But if you'd like a breakdown of other notable hitting performances from Tuesday, check out the Daily Batters Box article over on PitcherList.com. Now we'll head to the mound and check out some notable starting pitching performances, opening with Michael Soroka, who did all he could, but the Nationals lost to the Rockies. He tossed 6 innings, allowing 5 hits and 3 earned runs while walking 2 and striking out 9. He induced 16 whiffs with 32% CSW across 93 pitches. And our streaming pick of the day came through as Soroka's slurve cooked as expected at nearly 50% usage. It induced 12 whiffs and 46% CSW as he kept them low to pair with his 4-seamers upstairs that turned in 3 whiffs and 20% CSW as the 4-seamer kept hitters off the slurve and got outs on balls in play. Soroka was pretty much 2-pitch in this one, incorporating just 12 sinkers and changeups to poor effect, but he's proven to have a much higher ceiling this year thanks to the whiffs that this new slider has produced. However, the rest of his skill set doesn't support him to be rostered outside of streams against weak offenses, and definitely means we're not starting Soroka against the Dodgers in LA next. Next, we have Antonio Senzatella on the opposite side of that one as he helped the Rockies to win in our nation's capital, tossing 5 shutout innings, allowing 3 hits and 3 walks while striking out nobody, inducing 1 whiff with 22% CSW across 83 pitches. No strikeouts, with 5 shutout frames. Only Antonio Senzatella could pull this one off as his 4-seamer constantly returned outs in the field, and he wasn't afraid to toss it in the zone with reckless abandon. His curve and sinker did a good job of catching batters off guard to steal a combined 6 strikes, but I don't think you really need more analysis from me on Senzatella's Tuesday start to determine whether you should start him in his next outing against the Diamondbacks. And lastly, we've got Will Warren, who did all he could, but the Yankees lost to the Angels. He tossed 6 innings, allowing 6 hits and 3 earned runs while walking nobody and striking out 11. He induced 14 whiffs with 41% CSW across 93 pitches to earn the King Cole as his 41% CSW led baseball on Tuesday. Warren also set a career high with those 11 punchouts, and it's really impressive that he did so with no walks, especially being a guy who struggled with the free pass throughout the early part of his career. But Warren filled up the zone with fastballs as he went north-south with his 4-seamer for 8 whiffs and 42% CSW, and east-west with his sinkers for 3 whiffs and 55% CSW, while his sweeper looked to get chases and did a pretty decent job returning a trio of whiffs and 35% CSW. Warren has shown flashes this year when he's able to consistently find strikes with his heaters without serving up too much damage, and he should continue to be trusted because of his immense strikeout ceiling pitching for a winning ball club in New York. I'm good starting Warren versus the Orioles in his next start. But if you'd like a breakdown of every single start from Tuesday, give the Plus Pitch podcast a listen and check out Nick's daily SP roundup over on PitcherList.com. Now we'll head to the bullpen and check out the relievers that got saves and the closers that pitched outside of save situations or blew their saves. Starting with the former, Emilio Pagan recorded his 17th save with a hitless ninth. Daniel Palencia is up to 7 saves after his scoreless ninth on Tuesday. Emmanuel Clase pitched a scoreless ninth to record his 15th save. And lastly, Tanner Scott recorded his 14th save with a perfect ninth. And in terms of closers to pitch outside of save situations or blow their saves, Calvin Fauché pitched a scoreless ninth with a 5-run lead. That was because the Marlins tacked on 2 insurance runs in the 8th. Jeff Hoffman pitched a hitless ninth down by 1 and earned his 6th win when the Blue Jays walked it off in the bottom half. Hoffman hadn't pitched since last Tuesday, so this was a pretty useful maintenance outing for the right-hander. Shelby Miller served up 2 homers in the ninth on the opposite side of Hoffman to blow his 4th save and take his 2nd loss. Raisel Iglesias pitched a perfect 10th in a tie game and earned his 4th win when the Braves walked it off. Edwin Diaz pitched a perfect 9th in a tie game. Felix Bautista also pitched a perfect 9th, but he did it with a 4-run lead after the Orioles tacked on an insurance run in the top half. And lastly, Andres Munoz pitched a scoreless 9th with an 8-run lead. He hadn't pitched since last Monday, so this was clearly a maintenance outing. But if you'd like more information on relief pitchers, check out Rick Graham's weekly articles over on pitcherlist.com. And before we look forward to today's games, we're going to take a quick break. Now look forward to Wednesday, June 18th, the day in which we'll have a full slate of 15 games. My matchup of the day is Garrett Crochet versus Luis Castillo. Crochet has been dope this year. Honestly, dope since last year, and it's really fun watching him on the Red Sox and on my home league team. So big fan of Crochet. Excited to see what he can do in Seattle against Luis Castillo, who's been turning things around this year, but still clearly on the decline. Still could be a very good pitching matchup here with 2 guys that have laid claim to the label of ace in the past. In terms of probable starters, we've got 7 guys in the auto starts tier, including Crochet. We've also got Tarek Skubal versus the Pirates, Chris Sale versus the Mets, and Framber Valdez in Sacramento. Our probably starts tier is 3 guys, and our questionable starts tier is 6 guys, and that's where we'll find our streamer of the day in Mitchell Parker versus the Rockies. Rocky Road. Here we go again. It worked with Michael Soroka. Mitchell Parker, not as great, not as high of a ceiling as Soroka, but he could work through 6 frames here and get you a quality start versus one of the worst offenses in baseball. I'd also keep an eye out for Ryan Yarbrough versus the Angels. Yarbrough has shown flashes this year of immense strikeout potential, which is not something we've seen from him in the past. He should have pretty good run support as well. Pitching for the Yankees, I actually really adore the start, Ryan Yarbrough versus the Angels. In terms of hitter suggestions, we've got a lot. I'd go for Dane Myers versus Ranger Suarez at Lone Depot Park. Myers is batting .417 with a 1084 OPS and 12 at-bats against Ranger Suarez in his career. I'd also go for Keibert Ruiz versus German Marquez in Nationals Park. Ruiz has batted .625 with a 1575 OPS and 8 at-bats against German Marquez. I'd also look at Ketel Marte versus Eric Lauer in Rogers Center. Marte has batted .412 with a pair of homers and a 1236 OPS in 17 at-bats against Lauer. Francisco Lindor also has had a lot of success in his career versus Chris Sale, and he'll be taking him on in Truist Park. Lindor has batted .412 with 2 homers and a 1076 OPS in 34 at-bats against Sale. I'd also look at Orioles hitters versus Taj Bradley at George Steinbrenner Field. It's played very offensive friendly, and all of Gunnar Henderson, Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Urias, and Jordan Westberg have all taken Taj Bradley deep in the past. I'd also look at Andrew Benintendi versus Sonny Gray at Wright Field. Benintendi has batted .379 with a homer and an .896 OPS in 29 at-bats against Sonny Gray. I'd also look at Mark Canha versus Patrick Corbin in Globe Life Field. Canha has been incredible against the Southpaw, batting .448 with 1 homer and a 1070 OPS in 29 at-bats against Patrick Corbin. I'd also look at Rhys Hoskins versus Jameson Taillon in Wrigley Field. Hoskins has batted .364 with a pair of homers and a 1326 OPS in just 11 at-bats against Taillon. And lastly, Carlos Santana versus Justin Verlander makes for a good stream in Oracle Park. Santana has batted .226 with 9 home runs and a .927 OPS in 84 at-bats against Justin Verlander. And now we'll close things out with our relievers to watch. We have just one. Tanner Scott has pitched on 3 days in a row, so one of Kirby Yates or Alex Vesia should get a save opportunity for the Dodgers on Wednesday. But that'll do it for today's episode of the First Pitch Podcast. Make sure to head on over to pitcherlist.com to check out all of the great articles and features we have on the site. Sign up for PL Plus or PL Pro to gain access to the Discord and to support the Pitcher List staff. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler, tune in live on YouTube tomorrow and every day for a new installment of the podcast, and make sure to enjoy the day as we are blessed with another day of baseball.